the scenery. For context, I'm just coming into the little town of Perth, which is south of Launceston by about 15-20 k's. It's been recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, been bypassed, so that you don't go into the town anymore, you go around it, which is good for the little town itself because the main streets and all the other streets are much quieter. It's good for the traffic doesn't need to go there because they had a little bit of time off their journey going the south towards Hobart or coming from the south towards Launceston. Just crossing the South-Esk River. It's very prominent, or is prominent, not very prominent, just prominent throughout Launceston, the surrounding region. The tires of the ship. This is a section of the Midland Highway that's Launceston. You can see it's a dual carriageway via safety barriers between the two lanes, or the two carriageways. And I'm obviously going north towards Launceston, and the traffic you can see on my right is going left. On my right is going south towards Hobart. The various Liberal governments, started with Premier Bill Hoskin, who now 3 premiers ago, decided that the highway would be fully duplicated all the way from Launceston to Hobart. This was going to be a 10-year project. We don't know where they're up to in terms of the 10-year project. And the 10-year timeline is well and truly passed. But the highway is still not fully duplicated. And that is an issue because it's the main north-south highway between the two bigger cities in the state. So a lot of traffic goes up there. On Sunday, a fair bit of traffic. Imagine what it would be like on other working days. And so, in terms of productivity for the state, getting things moved quickly from one point to the other, anytime you have a slowdown on part of the road where that's road is not a dual carriageway, allowing it to happen, Western Plate 2 or 3 is going to slow down delivery times, and that's not a good thing. So, as I said, I don't know where the government is up to with the information, but I know it's not complete. And, I'm sure that they hope, maybe all the people who buy trucks are up there, sometime in the not too distant future, the project will be completed, but there will be a dual carriage. The other big highway here is the Bass Highway, which is the one that runs between Launceston and Devonport. And it's also not a dual carriage road all the way, and the government is now committed to duplicating that all along its length. I'm not sure if they go to find this, if they do. Um, but then the problem is that all the freight that comes into Tasmania comes on the Spirit of Tasmania, which lands in the docks in Devonport. Now, there are centres in the northwest, for example, 40 k's from Devonport, west of Devonport. It's a big centre. So a big centre, I think the population is probably around 40,000. I'm not really sure, but probably around 40,000. So some freight may go directly to Devonport. The fact is that most of the Tasmania, not Devonport. The fact is most of the freight then comes out to Launceston and so on. And as is the case with the Midland Highway, the highway between Devonport and Launceston is not a dual carriageway, two lanes each side, then travel times are going to be longer. That's not that important for you and I if we're just commuters or people just getting off the ferry starting their holiday. Maybe they have to spend an hour and 10 minutes getting from Devonport to Launceston. Not that's a big deal. But if you're a truck driver and you're delivering freight, then you have to spend extra time doing that. That is a big deal because it takes you longer to get the freight to where it's got to be, then it takes longer for that freight to get delivered to other people once you've taken it together. And the process just builds from there, delay after delay after delay, because getting from the boat to the holding yard where you've got to deliver it takes longer than it ought to do. The government has said it will duplicate the Bass Highway, and no doubt it is working on that. I said I don't know if they go to time frame, but I'm sure that everybody that's connected with Europe, everybody that uses the highway will just hurry up, get on with it, and get it done. Now into May, obviously, so it's the 4th of May, Sunday the 4th of May. So that's the March, not the autumn, I suppose. And obviously June, July, August will be winter months, and it'll be quite cold down in some areas will see snow, there'll be frosts, heavy frosts and minus temperatures in the morning. Um, there are days like today when it's quite cool and overcast early in the morning, and then once the frost is burned away, the day comes out to be a little warmer. Those days of getting around your shorts and your t-shirt, when it's really hot, unless you are a native Tasmanian, in which case you put around in your shorts and your t-shirt a lot of the year, and you just get acclimatised to the cold when you get up. Those who might be watching overseas, the speed limits in Tasmania are the same as they are on the mainland. That is, built up areas 50 kilometres per hour, unless it's otherwise, unless there's a sign that says otherwise. The maximum speed you may travel on Tasmanian roads is 110 kilometres per hour. That only applies where you see that it says 110. Other places it might say 190, 80, whatever it says. The speed signs are displayed on white signs, black figures inside a red circle, and they're in kilometres per hour. We use the metric system if you're watching from overseas. So if you see a number that says 50, it means 50 kilometres per hour, not 50 miles an hour. And of course, all the cars have speedos that are in kilometres per hour, although some of them have both kilometres and miles per hour. So 50 kilometres per hour, unless when you're in a built-up area, unless it says otherwise. And one of the places where it will specifically say otherwise, and be specifically less than 50, is around the school. The school zones, the speed limit is 40 kilometres per hour, and that applies in the morning from about 8 o'clock to 9:30, but it might be different depending on the hours of the school that you're passing through, and I think from about 2:30 in the afternoon to 4 o'clock. And that's the case certainly in New South Wales, and I think also in Queensland and Victoria, but in the ACT, school zones apply all day. So be very careful where you are. Make sure you know what the rules regarding school zones are. And the speed limit is 40 unless there's a sign that says otherwise. Now, as I said, the maximum speed limit on Tasmanian roads, as is in all roads in Australia except those in the Northern Territory, is 110 kilometres per hour. That doesn't mean you need to travel at 110 kilometres per hour, but if you're not doing that, then you should travel in the left lane so the faster vehicles can get past you. And if you're a motorcyclist in particular and you're new to Tasmanian roads, you might want to travel at a little lower than the speed limit, because if you don't know the roads, the road conditions can change dramatically, not just in terms of the surface of the road and the state of the road itself, but also the weather conditions can change quite dramatically, quite quickly here. And there can be places that you'll be riding on the road, and there'll be parts of the road that are in shadow, even in the middle of the day like this time of the day, and black ice can be a problem. Now, it won't be a problem today because there hasn't been any frost, but in the winter months in particular, June, July, August, there will be black ice on the roads. It's called black ice because ice is clear, obviously, and all you can see is the black top of the road like this, but there'll be ice on it, and it'll be in the shadow because it's overhung by trees or hills and mountains and so on, and the sun doesn't get into that section of the road at any time during the day or sufficient warmth to be able to melt that ice. So if you're doing a motorcycling trip around Tasmania and you're coming in the winter months, then be aware of the weather conditions, be aware of the road conditions, do some research on the roads that you're going to travel on beforehand. Take the RACT, that's the Royal Auto Club of Tasmania, get some maps from them, get some information, go to tourist bureaus, talk to motorcycle clubs, get on the social media forums and find out from people who've been here what the road conditions in the area that you're going to be in are like at the time that you're going to be there. There'll be areas in Tasmania where there is no mobile phone coverage, or mobile phone coverage is very poor, so be aware of that. And although it's a small state, distances apparently would appear to be not great between most centres. Some of the roads can be not not the greatest of roads in terms of the surface, but also there's narrow, small country roads in many places, and it's going to take vehicles, if you're in an accident of any sort, you require roadside assistance or you require medical assistance or something, sometimes you're going to take vehicles some time, emergency services and so forth, it's going to take them some time to get to where you are if you're in an isolated area. Best if you can, if you're going motorcycling in Tasmania, that you ride in a group and just ride by yourself. Safety in numbers and all that sort of stuff, and somebody in the group is always looking out for everybody else is a tail gunner, as they say. It's a bit of a problem if you are the tail gunner, but at least there's somebody at the back looking after you, so if somebody else has a fall or has an incident involving wildlife or something like that, there's somebody there that's able to talk out or notify the rest of the crew or whatever the situation is like that. That's another thing that you should be very conscious of on Tasmanian roads, that is wildlife. Unfortunately, you will see a lot of roadkill in rural areas. When I say rural areas, it's in some cases not that far out of Launceston. You'll see roadkill. There is a lot of wildlife. A lot of wildlife is nocturnal. And so again, if you're riding at night, you want to be very careful. Put your lights on. If you've got driving lights or whatever, use them so you can see as much of the road as you possibly can. And vehicles coming the other way can see you, of course. And it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, wear your protective gear. Wear all the gear all the time. Gloves, helmet, boots, proper pants, good jacket. And if you're coming in winter months, you want something underneath that's warm, because it'll get cold even when the sun's out. It'll get cold, and there's nothing worse than being cold when you're on a motorcycle. The only thing worse than that is being wet. But that cold and wet will cause fatigue and will cause you to make bad decisions which will not lead to good outcomes for you. Heated grips, maybe. I have them on this bike, but I don't use them. Not cold enough yet for me to need them. I have a heated seat. I don't need that, use that at the moment either. Maybe there'll come a time when I'll need it. I do favour heated jackets and so on. You can get those, and you can either, if you've got a port, a charging port somewhere on your bike, plug them in that way, or you can get them with your own power packs, give you 3 or 4 hours of warmth at a time. Carry your wet weather gear when you go out, because you might think, well, it's a bright sunny day here, even though it's winter, it's bright and sunny and there's not a cloud in the sky. As I said, the weather can be changeable here and change very quickly, especially if you're over on the west coast or you happen to be in an alpine region, the mountains or hills anywhere. And it is definitely better to carry it and not need it than need it and not have carried it. we're in 1 o'clock. I don't want to control. Church is open.